Most people will never understand what it actually felt like. The quiet stress that lived in the walls of your home. The way you learned to read a room before you even knew what that meant. The small sacrifices that nobody talked about but everyone felt. Growing up without money isn't something people like to discuss. It carries a weight that's hard to explain to someone who's never felt it. But if you've lived it, you know. You know what it's like to grow up faster than you were supposed to. To worry about things children shouldn't have to worry about. To feel different in ways you couldn't always put into words. And here's what most people completely miss about that experience. What they don't tell you, what the world rarely stops to acknowledge, is that what you went through didn't just leave marks. It left gifts, hidden ones, rare ones, the kind that most people spend their entire lives trying to develop and still never quite reach the depth that you naturally carry inside you. So if you grew up poor or in financial stress or watching your parents struggle, this video is for you. Not to romanticize what was genuinely hard, not to pretend the pain wasn't real, but to show you something true about yourself that you may have never fully seen before. Let's talk about the 5 unique strengths that grow quietly inside people who were shaped by financial hardship. The first strength is this: you developed an extraordinary ability to adapt. When resources are limited, you don't get the luxury of a plan B that costs money. You figure things out with what you have. You improvise, you stretch, you make something from almost nothing, and somehow it works. As a child, maybe you didn't see it that way. Maybe it just felt like stress or embarrassment or frustration. But what was actually happening underneath all of that was the construction of one of the most valuable cognitive skills a human being can possess: adaptive thinking. Psychology shows that individuals who grow up in unpredictable or resource-scarce environments often develop what researchers call cognitive flexibility at a much higher rate than those raised in more stable, comfortable conditions. Your brain literally learned how to pivot, how to problem solve under pressure, how to find creative solutions when the obvious ones weren't available to you. Think about it this way. You probably know how to stretch a meal, stretch a dollar, stretch a situation in ways that someone raised with financial comfort simply wouldn't think of. You've walked into rooms where things weren't set up in your favor and found a way through anyway. That's not luck. That's a trained mind, a resilient, flexible, remarkably capable mind that was quietly built through every hard moment you lived through. In the workplace, in relationships, in life, adaptability is the skill that separates people who collapse under pressure from people who rise through it. And you built that skill the hard way, the real way. The second strength is something even deeper. You understand the true value of things. There's a kind of gratitude that can't be taught in a classroom. It can't be learned from a book or a motivational quote. It only comes from knowing what it's like to not have something and then having it, or from learning to find genuine joy in small things, because small things were sometimes all there was. Research in positive psychology consistently shows that people who have experienced scarcity develop a more authentic and lasting relationship with gratitude than those who have always had abundance. It's not just an attitude, it becomes a part of how you perceive the world. You've probably noticed this in yourself. A warm meal hits differently when you remember times it wasn't guaranteed. A stable moment feels like something to protect when you remember what instability felt like. While others scroll past their blessings without a second thought, you often notice them, really notice them. That awareness, that depth of appreciation is not small. It is actually one of the most psychologically protective traits a person can have. Studies link authentic gratitude with lower rates of depression, stronger relationships, and higher overall life satisfaction. You didn't choose to develop this trait through ease. You developed it through experience, and that makes it real in a way that simply can't be faked. The third strength is one that quietly shapes every relationship you'll ever have. You developed a powerful and rare emotional intelligence. Growing up in financially stressed households often means growing up surrounded by complex emotions. Tension that wasn't always spoken, but was always felt. Adults carrying burdens they were trying to hide. Siblings or parents whose moods you learned to read quickly because reading them mattered. Because knowing how someone was feeling before they told you meant you could adjust, help, prepare, or simply stay quiet when quiet was what the room needed. What you were doing, without knowing it, was developing an acute sensitivity to emotional undercurrents, to what's beneath the surface of what people say and do. Psychology calls this attunement, and it is at the core of emotional intelligence. You likely find that you notice things about people that others miss. A shift in someone's tone, a smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes, the weight someone's carrying that they haven't told anyone about. You sense it. And because of that, people often feel genuinely understood around you in a way they can't always explain. This kind of emotional depth makes you a more compassionate friend, a more perceptive partner, and a more effective leader. It's not just sensitivity, it's a sophisticated internal radar that was calibrated through years of navigating emotionally complex environments. That is extraordinarily rare, and it belongs to you. The fourth strength might surprise you. You carry an unshakable inner drive that most people simply don't have. There's a particular kind of hunger that comes from growing up knowing that nothing is going to be handed to you. Not opportunity, not safety, not ease. When you don't have a financial cushion to fall back on, when there's no inheritance waiting, no safety net to catch you, something shifts in how you approach your own future. You don't wait for things to come to you. You go after them. Not because someone told you to, but because somewhere deep inside, you understand that if you don't move, things don't move. Research on socioeconomic upbringing and motivation has found that individuals from lower income backgrounds who achieve success often display remarkably high levels of intrinsic motivation, meaning they are driven from within, not dependent on external validation or reward. That internal engine was built inside you by necessity. Think about how hard you've worked for things that others received easily. Think about what you've done with less. Think about the goals you've set and the obstacles you've quietly pushed through without fanfare, without a cheering section, sometimes without anyone even knowing what it cost you to get there. That kind of drive doesn't come from comfort. It comes from knowing the weight of its absence. And once it's in you, it doesn't leave. You move through life with a fire that's real, that's earned. And whether the world sees it or not, it is one of your most defining and powerful qualities. The fifth strength is perhaps the most overlooked of all. You developed an authentic sense of empathy that connects you to the full range of human experience. When you have lived on the edges of comfort, when you have known what it is to struggle, to feel overlooked, to carry silent stress, something happens to your capacity for empathy. It expands, it deepens, it becomes something more than just feeling sorry for others. It becomes a genuine, almost cellular understanding of what it means to be human in the most vulnerable and unguarded sense. Psychology consistently links personal experience of hardship with higher levels of what researchers call compassionate empathy. The kind of empathy that doesn't just recognize another person's pain, but actually motivates action. You don't just feel for people, you feel with them, and you're moved to do something about it. This is why people often come to you with their real problems, not the polished, presentable ones, the raw, messy, I don't know what to do ones, because they sense, even if they can't name it, that you won't flinch, you won't judge. You've been somewhere hard yourself, and that gives you a grace in the presence of someone else's difficulty that is genuinely uncommon. In a world that can feel increasingly surface level, your depth of empathy is not just a personal strength. It is something the people around you need. It is a gift that ripples outward in ways you may never fully see, but that shapes lives simply by being present in yours. So here's what I want you to sit with before this video ends. You grew up in circumstances you didn't choose. You carried weight you were too young to carry. You went without things that other kids around you seemed to take for granted. And none of that was fair. None of it should be minimized or dressed up to seem like it wasn't hard. But look at who it made you. Look at the way you move through the world. Adaptable, grateful, emotionally perceptive, deeply driven, and capable of a kind of empathy that most people only scratch the surface of. You weren't broken by where you came from. You were quietly, profoundly shaped by it. The things that were supposed to be disadvantages became the architecture of a rare and remarkable person. And that person is you. If this video helped you see yourself a little more clearly today, subscribe to this channel. We make videos like this one every week, diving into the hidden psychology behind who you are and why you are the way you are. Because understanding yourself is the beginning of everything, and you deserve to understand just how much you're actually carrying inside you.